In Zurich, Switzerland, in December 2019, scientists Jan Ehrlich and Robert Grass announced an incredible technological breakthrough that takes the unassuming form of a small plastic bunny. And this seemingly mundane object hides an incredible secret because, just like a living creature, the bunny has its own DNA. By binding negatively charged molecules of biological DNA with positively charged particles or protective silica, Ehrlich and Grass were able to create the world's first synthetic DNA, and while biological DNA is relatively fragile, this synthetic DNA can last potentially for eons, and in the case of the bunny, the scientists encoded the digital files used to create the 3D printed object into the plastic. With even just a tiny snippet, they can decode the information inside and print a new copy of the bunny, which will carry the same synthetic DNA. And what makes this breakthrough particularly significant is the fact that it has the ability to store massive amounts of data, as digital computers deal with zeros and ones while Mother Nature computes in base 4 using A, T, C, and G on a DNA molecule. We can actually compute by hijacking this base 4 mechanism that Mother Nature has created and putting our programming on A, T, C, and G, and experts say that once this technique is scaled up, massive amounts of data can be stored in any object and retrieved and replicated presumably forever, as these are great alternatives for storing data because they don't need any energy for storage and can just sit on a shelf and not degrade. Once you actually encode data into DNA, it's very cheap to replicate, and you can put petabytes of data into a droplet of DNA and then make a billion copies of it very inexpensively, and DNA is also very compact, as the amount of space it takes to store Wikipedia is just a few drops of liquid that could be embedded into fabric or paper and take up almost no space. Although DNA data storage is still in its infancy, ancient astronaut theorists believe it presents an intriguing possibility. Is it possible that many out-of-place artifacts discovered around the world have much more to offer than what meets the eye, and might they contain information within them about whatever civilization left them behind? As there are lots of natural materials that conduct and can contain information today, including crystals, various types of stones, and even living organisms? Ancient astronaut theorists suggest that by examining out-of-place artifacts, we might discover clues as to what information is contained within them and how to access it, and as support for this notion, they point to the artifacts that humanity recently sent to the Moon, as when the Arch Mission Foundation created the Lunar Library, they included analog layers that could be read without a computer. The idea of the Lunar Library was to make it something that recipients who find it in millions to billions of years could see that it has data on it, and the analog layers teach everything you need to know to build a computer and get the digital information off the deeper layers, and by trying to store information for thousands or millions of years, you end up going to the same solutions that hypothetical ancient aliens may have also figured out how to use. In Alatri, Italy in June 2019, ancient astronaut theorist Giorgio Tsoukalos investigated the astronomical alignment of the finest megalithic construction in Italy, the city's acropolis. With the help of Dr. Giulio Magli, a professor of archaeoastronomy from the Polytechnic University in Milan who has spent years studying this massive structure built on top of a hill and defined by 6 huge walls. The shape of the acropolis when viewed from the sky has led some to suggest it was built to create a lasting commemoration of the site's connection to the stars, and when a drone was used to get an aerial view, it was discovered that the entire mountaintop has been artificially shaped so that it is in the shape of the constellation of Gemini, raising the question of why it was built in this shape and suggesting that something of significance happened here a long time ago. In Greek mythology, the Gemini constellation depicts twin brothers Castor and Pollux, the offspring of a god and a human, as Zeus shape-shifted or disguised himself as a swan and impregnated a human female named Leda, leading to the birth of Castor and Pollux. Ancient astronaut theorists propose that this story could be an account of an extraterrestrial encounter, as the legends say the Gemini twins were born of a cosmic egg that descended from the sky, described as having either a silver or bronze-colored shell with smoke, fire, and noise. Many UFOs are sometimes seen as eggs, so it is quite possible that the egg of Castor and Pollux was some extraterrestrial vehicle that looked like an egg and landed on Earth with 2 twins stepping out, and if the Alatri Acropolis was purposely built to resemble the Gemini constellation, it could be commemorating an alien visitation with the extraterrestrials themselves having had a hand in the wall's construction. Located in Midtown Manhattan, Grand Central Terminal is the busiest train station in the United States, with 750,000 people coming through each day, and when they do, they pass under an enormous star chart whose origins date back some 5,000 years. An epic, magnificent mural of the zodiac wheel that is one of the largest zodiac murals in the modern world. As far as ancient astronaut theorists are concerned, the zodiac mural depicts the evolution of the Earth in extraterrestrial terms, and the most interesting fact about this portion of the zodiac wheel is that it demonstrates the precession of the equinoxes. Back when the principles of astrology were first put together, the first day of spring was in Aries. During the Age of Christ, it was in Pisces. And nowadays, the spring equinox occurs when the sun rises in the constellation of Aquarius. Many believe that the age of Aquarius was set by ancient astrologers to begin in February 1962 and would trigger the rapid development of new technology. And ironically, it began just 7 years before man landed on the moon. And when our ancestors spoke about gods descending from the sky, they were not referring to the constellations themselves but people coming from those areas up in the night sky. According to the Sumerians, Enki is the original man of Aquarius, an otherworldly, even extraterrestrial, being, and as we enter the new age of Aquarius, we are returning to a time when Enki himself may return, as the zodiac is in fact a sort of clock that tells not just about the sun's journey but also about the journey of extraterrestrials and their return to Earth, and there is a prophecy in the Glastonbury zodiac that the coming age of Aquarius will be a time where our minds begin to think radically differently in a way that can transform life on this planet for the better. In Amboise, France, in 1513, a 61-year-old Leonardo da Vinci began work on what would be his final painting, completing 3 years later his portrait of an androgynous figure emerging from a shadowy background called Saint John the Baptist. And Leonardo was encoding extraordinary secrets in his paintings, wanting to imbue his work for future generations with his own private message, as his paintings are like portals to another world. Investigators have recently found some pretty astonishing things about Leonardo da Vinci's painting of John the Baptist. When they mirror the image to create a double image and then use an enhancement process, they are able to bring out what seems to be the face of an extraterrestrial, and da Vinci is one of a long line of artists who told us that art is a medium and a conduit through which ordinary people can connect with higher dimensional beings, even extraterrestrials. On the island of Crete, on the Lassithi Plateau over half a mile above sea level, lies the Dictyon Cave, a sprawling complex of caverns stretching nearly 1.5 square miles with archaeological finds showing a human presence dating as far back as 6,000 years ago, and according to legend, its many chambers were once home to Zeus, the Greek god of thunder, who is the son of Cronus, the king of the first generation of gods known as the Titans. Zeus's father Cronus had heard a prophecy that one of his children would overthrow him, so just as soon as his children were born, he swallowed them all down, but his wife Rhea substituted a rock wrapped in swaddling clothes and hid Zeus away in a cave where he grew up, and the 8th century BC poet Hesiod specifically describes the cave Zeus was hidden in as lying near the city of Lyktos, the exact location of the Dictyon Cave. Around 1900 AD, a chamber in the Dictyon Cave was identified by locals as the birthplace of Zeus, and when archaeologists went in, they discovered an altar with remains of numerous religious offerings, including honey and goat milk, dating back 4,000 years to the exact period in which the ancient Greek stories took place, and also found were numerous artifacts and a fragmentary inscription bearing a hymn dedicated specifically to Zeus. The ancient Greeks believed that the War of the Titans physically happened, a war fought in the heavens by the deities, and according to ancient astronaut theorists, these human-like beings may have been something other than divine, as similar myths of warring gods can be found in Norwegian mythology with Ragnarok, in Sumerian, Babylonian and Hittite accounts, and in the Anunnaki epics of ancient Iraq, all telling of a warring race of beings that squabbled amongst themselves about the rights of various areas on the earth. The Tonle Sap Lake in Cambodia is a combined lake and river system whose flow changes direction twice a year, and is said to hold the mythical sword of Preah Pisnokar, a wizard and master craftsman in Cambodian mythology who is the son of a human man and a woman who came from the sky, and some have credited him as being the architect behind the world's largest religious shrine, Angkor Wat. Preah Pisnokar was said to have fashioned a sword as tiny as a feather that could cut stone, reportedly cutting a ceramic jug so finely down the middle that the water only ran out when the two halves fell apart, and according to ancient astronaut theorists, the blade had lost its power because it was not made of metal but of light, something that sounds remarkably like a laser or lightsaber. Does a sword of fire really exist? Well, it does if you think of a type of lightsaber, and from the description of Preya Pisnoker's sword being very thin, very bright, and emitting light more blinding than the sun, it could be a kind of laser-type beam, and a laser is like a bunch of waves all moving together in step, making the light that much more powerful and effective. A lightsaber makes much more sense as a plasma beam, a bunch of very energetically charged particles that would glow, giving the effect of a lightsaber with an endpoint because they respond to magnetic fields, and descriptions of laser-type technology can be found in numerous ancient texts, including a yin-yang mirror in China that could kill opponents with a beam of light, the Maori god who defeated rebels with a kind of laser lightning weapon, and Brahma's arrow from ancient India. In Chicago, Illinois, in 2006, scientists pioneered a stunning biomechanical advancement, a thought-controlled robotic arm outfitted with electrodes that connect to the nerves of the wearer, working just like an actual arm and hand by receiving signals from the brain, and ancient astronaut theorists point to a remarkably similar account in an ancient story from the British Isles about a divine physician called Dian Sect. Dian Sect was the physician of the gods and a celebrated physician of the Tuatha De Danann, a race of supernatural beings that came to Ireland riding on dark clouds, and in the most famous account of his medical feats, he healed a king named Nuada who had lost his arm in battle, fashioning him an arm out of silver that was fully functional and became known as Nuada of the Silver Hand. The story of Dian Sect giving King Nuada a fully functional silver arm really sounds like a modern science fiction story, almost like prosthetics, and it would seem that these legends are talking about pretty high-tech medical devices and knowledge, the kind of medical knowledge that has taken hundreds of years of expensive research to find today, suggesting that they had these devices in ancient times from extraterrestrials. In Greece in the 6th century BC, a philosopher named Nisarchus was traveling home when he came upon an abandoned infant staring at the sun, surviving solely on the dew from a nearby tree, and he named this baby Astraeus, which literally means star child, in Greek, adopted him, and raised him with Pythagoras and his two brothers as part of their family. Although Pythagoras is considered one of history's greatest mathematical minds, some ancient astronaut theorists believe he may have received advanced knowledge from the boy Astraeus, as it is believed that Astraeus was actually sent to Earth in order to instruct Pythagoras, whose mystic concepts became foundational to the ancient world, and this child with special powers whose birth is really a mystery may have been one of the early extraterrestrial children sent to planet Earth. Many ancient cultures, including the ancient Greeks and Egyptians, describe how some children were born from humans and the so-called gods, and science tells us that in addition to the two-strand double helix DNA, there are an additional 10 etheric strands of DNA that are dormant in humans since recorded history, and it is highly possible that alien creators designed us this way with certain individuals chosen throughout time to awaken these dormant strands in order to help mankind advance. According to geneticist David Reich of Harvard Medical School, there is something mysterious inside us that has yet to be identified, as his study published in fall 2013 examined the genome of Neanderthals and ancient hominids known as Denisovans, both of which interbred with humans, and discovered that their DNA dating back more than 400,000 years contains an unknown ancestor. What some geneticists currently refer to as junk DNA might not be junk after all, as DNA is a code, and just because its code hasn't been cracked yet doesn't mean it's actually junk. And to speculate even further, what if this unknown species was not of earthly origin and every human being is already part alien?